which leads me into another thing that I wanted to talk about. We'll probably break this up because I did the straight up talk with Monty about like I think all the issues with like format of LEC this year. But here's an issue that I have that relates to this topic, which is now the fact that there are 4 split championships and how people are viewing split wins as the same as before, which I just don't think that makes sense. When you double the amount of split championships you can win, like how are we just adding LEC titles to like other people's resumes? Like the thing that was so impressive about Caps' like dominant era is he won 6 championships over the course of 4 years. I mean, it was 3 years actually, but like he won those 6 championships. He had to be like the best for years and years and years. Now you could win 6 championships in a year and a half.
Yes.
Like to me, I think it just doesn't compute that we're pretending like these LEC splits are the same as old LEC splits. If you think about old LEC splits, when he won his first title, I believe in 2018, when he won his first title, he's doing it in an arena. You know, like that was the whole thing. You'd go, it would be a whole spectacle. There'd be 10,000 fans. Everyone would be there. It would be so hype. And then comparing that to like winning a split in an arena when you have like the more important split coming or the more important tournament coming up in 3 weeks, it just feels off to me that we're trying to like equate splits as 1-to-1. To me, it's like, I wouldn't say it's worth like half a championship. Maybe it's a little bit more than that, but I definitely don't think that it's worth like, it's definitely not 1-to-1 to me. Like winning a split in season 8 or season 9 is significantly harder than winning 1 out of these 4 splits now.
Well, for sure. I mean, that is the problem, is when people try to make it like, as you say, that they're all identical value and essentially now you just get more chances to win. It doesn't make sense because like essentially, first of all, you have to look at the whole accomplishment of the split. Like essentially they should sort of be like, I mean, I don't know how you'd work out the math on it, but there should be like, it should be a third of whatever the accomplishment domestically is of 1 year as opposed to half. So that'd even be more fair. And then the other thing to me is, because the same thing actually happened in CSGO, and it wasn't until years later that I even thought of this myself. But in CSGO, if people don't know, when they first began, there was a couple of years where there used to be 3 majors a year. And then after that, they switched to 2 majors a year. And the problem is no one ever bothered thinking about what we're talking about here, Dom. So for example, like when like one of the teams that won 3 titles early on was for the Fnatic team. Well, that was when there was 3 in a year. Like they won 2 in 1 year, for example, when there was like 3. Whereas later, when the Astralis team won the most, they won like 4 out of 6 or something mental over 3 year span. Well, think about Charter. Like here's the other reason this is way harder, because in theory, the actual best thing for a team is to have as many championships in as short a span of time as possible. That way, one lineup, like you're saying, like the G2 lineup, for example, it's way easier to dominate for a year and get 3 titles than it is to be dominant for 2 whole years and get 4. That's way harder to do the latter, because think of all the metas you have to go through, or you might even have to change your player, or your opponents might change players. Like, I agree that the problem is we haven't figured out like what the ratio is. So, like, to me, logically, if we're going to count, like, say we make each of the past splits worth 1, then actually each one of these should probably be worth like 3/4 of a split or something like that, you know? Yeah. And then if you win 2, you get like 1/2. You know, something like that feels more reasonable. Because I'm with you, especially because if you think it's bad now, mate, in like, if we keep this format and we do it for like 2 or 3 years, it's actually going to really ruin it for people like the Soazes of the day that won the bunch of championships years ago, because there are going to be some fuckers, like some Mad Lions players going to have like 5 championships in 2 years, you know? Like, that's too many. Because like you're saying, for people like Caps, like, dude, to win like the 6 in a row, that was 3 whole years he had to be dominant. Like, that's really fucking hard.
Yeah, be the best. Like,
yeah, that's really hard.
Be insanely good for those years. So it's an issue I have. Also, I guess the season finals, which is the most important tournament, that doesn't count
as well. Yeah,
I guess it doesn't even count as a split. People are saying now, so it doesn't even count as a championship. But that's like by far the most important thing to work.
Yeah,
that is the most important one. So like the whole value of everything seems like really off. I think it's because like the new format, people don't really know where to go with it. But just because something is called like, oh, you won summer split in 2023, I just feel like there's just an issue with how people are perceiving it right now.
I'm with you. I mean, like I said, especially as the years go on, that will get worse, because like the other thing it also throws off is you're going to have all these people like my boy Odoamne until last year, where they've had years where they haven't like won a title. And now people are going to rock up like fucking like, Kazi's on 3 now by that logic. Yep. He's already on 3. I don't think so. So then I agree. It's going to throw the rankings off. It's a problem.
For sure. And then also like the thing that's also makes these splits easier is, I mean, obviously you take away the pressure of playing in like a huge studio and stuff like that, which I guess you could argue COVID had the same issues at points. But the main thing that I would say ends up being tough here is that like because you're only playing in 2 patches, you're going to get way more upsets. You're going to get a lot more just like one patch monsters where they figure out something on a patch and they're like their champions hit the meta in the right place and these teams end up smurfing. If you think about the consistency of teams, like for years it was just like who are the good teams in Europe? It's just G2, Mad Lions, Rogue, Fnatic. It was just all, and then now like BDS is in a final, XL is in a final. Like you can see these teams just getting close. Like Mad has a horrible regular season. They just get it together on a patch. They end up winning a championship. Like teams are getting to their like positions, like these high ranking positions way easier because you don't have to be good for as long. It's not like you have to have a dominant regular season that goes over the course of like 3 or 4 patches. And then you get to playoffs and there's a playoffs patch and you have to play multiple best of 5s. Like you can play like for example, G2, they play 2 best of 5s against the same team. Think about how easy it was for them to win this split compared to when they had to play those Fnatic lineups back in like 2019, 2020. They play XL, they have a horrible series, they still win, and then they play XL again in the finals. It's like, oh, we just played the same team twice. Those are the only 2 best of 5s we played the whole split, and we're just champions.
That's why it was so weird to me that, like, of all the teams to complain, the idea that a team like Herex was the one complaining when CL came on the show is so weird to me, Dom, because I actually think it's the opposite. I think it's better for his team, this format. Like as you saw, you can fuck around in some BO1s, get a bit lucky, you get a nice one. Then you go to groups, it's only BO3s. If you get a nice group, they had a half-decent one, you got a chance of getting out. Then you only have to play the BO5 once you get to the playoffs. Like, if instead we had this format, Dom, imagine the group stage is just all BO3s. Well, there's no universe where Herex is winning as many as they did there. Then imagine instead of like a groups into playoffs, it's like LCS. You should have a massive double elim best of 5 bracket. Dude, they're never getting a fucking 4th place. Like, there's no universe. Like, as you're saying, even though I do like some aspects of the format, it does seem like essentially if you're the underdog on a heater, it's way easier to make a deep run.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely part of it. I mean, I guess the other thing that we can talk about is, and this is an issue I had overall, was the like winning summer being almost irrelevant. Like you win summer, sure.
It's so quick that you have the season thing right afterwards as well.
Yeah, so you have the season thing afterwards, but like being first in summer doesn't guarantee you a world slot. I think that's so crazy,
weird, isn't it? Why doesn't you'd think that would just be the first slot given away and then the others would come from the finals, right? Now look, that's where they've fucked up the format. You're right, because they want the season finals no matter what that you have to play in it, right? So I guess they're scared if you give some of the world spot, then people are like, who cares? You already qualified, but you're supposed to want to still win the season finals. I guess they've actually fucked themselves on it. They sort of checkmate themselves.
Yeah, and then because like when you compare it to winter and spring, both of those first places give you a ticket to MSI. Like that gives you entry to MSI. So those feel more important than this summer split where, you know, we went into the finals and I tweeted out before, I had this like sarcastic tweet where I'm like, oh, this is really important for XL because if they win, then they can get up to 4th place in the season finals. But if they lose, they'll be 4th place in season finals. And then I said the same thing for G2. That really kills the hype for like the importance of the match. Like, sure, domestic titles matter, but then you also, so then you go into the whole rabbit hole of what is like a domestic title now compared to what it was before. But it just feels weird to like win this and actually not get any, you don't advance in any way towards your goal of going to Worlds. I mean, every player has the dream of one day winning Worlds. That should be like the huge like payoff, you know, like that's where everyone is aiming their careers. And this doesn't advance you at all towards, you know, this goal. It seems strange to me that summer season is like the least important one. Like it gives the most championship points, but for teams that have already placed themselves, like there's definitely Worlds where XL and Fnatic, that match doesn't matter anymore because you're playing with the 2nd and 3rd seed that have a bunch of championship points already and they're already guaranteed in season finals. So there's Worlds that even the 2nd, 3rd, like the 3rd, 4th that we ended up getting this time, this could be one of the better scenarios. There's definitely chances where, you know, all these best of 5s could not even matter at the end of the day.
Yeah, the other problem is they've made it as though like the thing you get from summer is like if you had have been an XL, if you'd have won, you'd have gotten to the season finals. But that's kind of a weird prize because it's supposed to be the best team. So you'd think like the best team should get some. What I would do is this. I would make it like you're saying. I would make first place in summer gets a world spot, but then maybe you just don't get like the seeds based on season finals or something. I would make that maybe what you'd play for because it does, like, put it this way, it's very unlikely to happen, but it would be stupid as fuck if G2 can now not qualify for Worlds.
Yes.
Like if they fuck up, that would be,
they can.
Like, it can, but that would be so stupid for the way the format's
not going to happen. So people aren't going to see how bad the format is, but like, that's what I'm trying to like, have people like realize that G2, number one, they're going to be playing on a different patch, right? It'll probably be 13-14, 13-15 if they end up playing on. They were good all year. Let's say that they really don't get this fucking patch. They lose 2 best of 5s they're done for the year. It's like, so they went to MSI. They were like competitive in every single split. Yep. They won 2 of the splits. Then they go into the season finals. It's like, oh yeah, you lost the season finals. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we know that like SK, you know, they didn't win a best of 5 all year, but you know, they beat you here. So now SK is going to Worlds over you. I think that's a crazy world that we live in.
The problem they have, if you notice, when they make the format for like domestic splits in the West, is they can only go between the 2 extremes. Either nothing matters except at the very end, like back in season 2, it's like basically just a qualifier at the end, and the last 3 or 4 teams make it. Or they do like the opposite, and then like they make the first split way too important or too many championship points. Like what I don't get is why do they always have to go to the extremes? Like you can tweak this a bit, you can just change the points a little bit and get it a little bit closer. Because obviously we're laying out what we actually want here. We're not just complaining about the problems. The 2 things we want is this. We do want results to count. So like G2 is a great example. If you have that many good placings, you should probably automatically be at Worlds at that point in time, you know. Like you've just done enough. And then secondly, we just
thought it was last year, by the way.
What we don't want though is as extreme as it would have been with what was going to happen in the first split, which is basically who was the team that the first split like overly helped? Trying to think who.
Koi.
That was it. Yes, Koi almost made it. If XL hadn't have won that 3rd place match, Koi would have been the ones here, which just seemed like really skewed because obviously the first split was far and away their best one. The second one was okay, and this last one was irrelevant. So that just, to me, if I'm LEC, those are the 2 things I'm looking at. I want to make it so a G2 is definitely there, and a Koi, it should be way harder for them. Like essentially, I would just flip the points for Summer, maybe like make Summer twice as much and fucking, I don't know, Winter like a third of what it is now, because the idea that like XL wasn't even going to make it, that seems a bit off, you know. Yeah. Like you want to incentivize the team that's strong in summer as well. Look, if Koi had made like 2 finals, yeah, like I'm saying, like the G2 angle, they'd be there, but they didn't even make a final for fuck's sake. How would they almost have been here if XL didn't literally win a best of 5 at the end? That seems a bit too much. That does seem too much.
Let me look back, but I'm pretty sure in that playoffs, like Koi didn't win a best of 5 all year.
No.
They did not win 1 best of 5 all year. They didn't make the best of 5 in spring or summer. And in the winter season, they qualified to the upper bracket by winning best of 3s.
Yes.
So they didn't win a best of 5 all year, and they could just make it in. They could just skirt their way into the season finals. So I think, this is another thing to talk about. I mean, I have a lot of angles on this. I think the championship points in general, and what I've learned from talking to my community, because I obviously like stream and, you know, I'm talking to just people that are in chat like all day. The championship point system is overly confusing for the average fan. They don't know what the fuck they're watching. Like, if you're not doing these shows like us, like, think about, we're doing these shows, we're like, all right, remember Thorin to like call this the season and like the season final, but they're not correlated. And like, if to an average fan that's just trying to just watch some league, they don't know what the fuck is going on. Like, they see like the summer championship. And when I started streaming, so many people thought that was actually like the final for like, oh, like the winner of this gets first seed of world,
like top 3 seeds or whatever. They thought it was like the old days, basically.
Yeah, they're like, oh, they won summer. Wait, they won summer? Like, what? There's another tournament, and it's like, wait, why is the tournament not starting? It's starting in 3 weeks randomly. Like, how the fuck does that work out? And they're trying to put together like the championship point situation. I ended up having the tweet that everyone was referencing about how Vitality could qualify, like what the conditions were. But even going through all of this, it's just like way too much math for somebody who's just trying to watch the games. Like, they're looking at the XL game, so it's like, okay, so XL needs to beat Fnatic for Koi, who got 8th, to be 6th in the season finals. It's way too confusing of a format. Even if it does like make sense, which I don't even think it does, but even if it did make sense, I think it's way too confusing for the average viewer. It's just too much for them to follow.
It's why in general, I'm also not a fan of like round robins in groups where people are like, how many tie situations are there? What happens in this tiebreaker? Like, that's so counterintuitive to a normal fan to watch. Like what you're talking about, the championship points. I know that it's not easy as a casual fan because I'm having to actively do work myself. Like what I do is the whole time for these playoffs, if you're a fan, I was just checking the championship points. Like, right, you've got this many so far. If you get this much, you get like 50 points extra. But I have to say, that's annoying for me to do. And it's not something I would be able to do if I didn't know the way the format worked. So, and the problem they have on the broadcast is, if you notice, they actually often barely even talk about that. I don't think they figured out how to message it, basically, because it needs to be like a very simple explanation. I mean, there just is, because the problem is, as soon as you give more than one possibility, I think people just get lost, their eyes glaze over, you know. I mean, to be fair, mate, even though everyone keeps telling me everyone understands, they don't. The amount of people who still see those graphics and say they've got a 94% chance of not making it. There was never a 94%. But anyway, that one just that's always my pet peeve. I can't handle that one. That one just sends me off the planet.
Yeah, every match is not 50-50. I try to explain it to people. They're like, no, it's 28%. And then like, Vitality didn't end up making it. They're like, see, it was 28%. See, it didn't happen. It was supposed to not happen. It's like, please, man, please. Like
if people don't know, the actual sad thing is you're all going to think you're right about the championship sport because in the end, Vitality didn't make it. But they didn't make it because essentially we had insane amounts of upsets.
Miracle situation.
Every single possible upset that could fuck them happened, basically. Like at the end, all of them happened. Yeah. See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.